On the 9th of December 2016, residents of Oduduwa area, Newtown, Ondo State, were shocked to discover a 12-year-old boy trapped between the walls of their fence. This strange occurrence was one story that shook the cores of the internet, causing the headlines to flow with different stories as to who the boy was, how he got there, how long had he been there, and whether this was spiritual or normal. This is the story of the boy in the wall. Now, before we go on, if you haven't subscribed, please do well to subscribe to my channel and turn on the bell button so you will get a notification whenever there is a new video. The story of the boy in the wall started 3 days before the 9th of December 2016. On the 7th of December, when neighbors said they were hearing a strange noise coming from the walls of the fence that separated two different compounds. One contained a series of shops and businesses, while the other one contained residential apartments. So when the residents began to hear cries and singing coming from the walls of the fence, one particular neighbor said she heard the voice speak incoherently the following words: "I am Judas Iscariot. I killed Jesus. Bring the gari, help me." So these were the words the neighbors said they heard, incoherently coming from the wall of the fence. And at first they didn't pay attention to it. This was on the 7th. They thought, oh, maybe it was coming from the other compound. And the other people in the other compound also thought maybe it was coming from the other compound. And that was how they ignored it the first day. The next day, on the 8th, the voice continued. This time a little less louder than the previous day, because clearly the energy of the person crying was gradually weakening. But they could still hear the cries, they could still hear the words, they could still hear the mumbles, and they could still hear the prayers. So eventually on the 8th, members of each compound confronted each other, and they explained to themselves that they thought it was coming from each other's end. Some neighbors thought this was spiritual. Some of the residents in the apartment buildings were already making plans to relocate, as they couldn't understand how this was happening. Some thought it was a prank being played on them, because whenever they said something to the wall, the voice would repeat it. It seemed like a joke to them at first, but when this continued even at night, they knew this was something bigger. It was on the 9th of December that they eventually decided to climb up a ladder to check where this noise was coming from truly, as there seemed to be a tiny little pocket of space between the walls of the complex building and the fence of the residential apartments. It was then they noticed someone stuck between the wall and the fence. Some sources said the police was called. Other sources said an elder in the compound took it upon himself to begin breaking the walls of the fence. And carefully the walls were broken, revealing an emaciated teenager trapped with one hand raised up because there wasn't enough room for it to bend. He was pulled out and was washed with water. However, this was just the beginning of a line of questions that gave birth to some of the most mysterious explanations as to how the boy got there and who he was. Now, it's unclear what really happened immediately the boy was brought out of the wall, but what is known is that the boy was immediately identified as 12-year-old Aduragbemi Saka, although some sources claimed he was 16 years old. The boy was soon reunited with his grandmother, who was said to have been looking for him, and just like that, it was said everybody moved on with their lives. Like, wait, was this supposed to be normal? It's not every day you wake up and find a teenager stuck between your walls. So how come everyone just carried on with their day like nothing happened? However, not everyone carried on with their day, as speculations began to spread. The first speculation had it that the fence was built over the boy by the owner of the compound, who was said to be on the run because the police were looking for him for questioning as to how did this little boy get into his fence. But that speculation had a problem, because you see, that fence had been there for almost 20 years and that there was no way the boy would have been around 20 years ago to be put there when the fence was being built, and obviously he wouldn't survive that long. Unless, of course, this was something more spiritual, which gave rise to the second speculation that began to fly around, that the boy was a wizard flying as a bird on his way to his coven when he got hit by a tree branch and fell into the wall, where he eventually turned into a human being. Now, many people believe this speculation because why not? It's very convenient. And that would explain how a big boy like him would be trapped in such a tiny space of wall. But how possible could that be? Not everybody believed in witches and wizards. Somehow there had to be a reasonable explanation to how the boy got there, and a good answer as to who the boy was. Two weeks after the story broke out, it was said that Channels Television paid a visit to the compound where the story was said to have happened. It was there that they learnt about the boy and the possibility of his full-grown self being trapped in the wall. Like we've talked about, to understand how the boy got in there, you have to understand how the wall and the fence were built. It was learnt that the fence was standing on its own, adjacent to the walls of the building of the shopping complex. So there was a wall of the buildings and there was a fence of the compound. And in between the wall and in between the fence, there was a space, a tiny little pocket space that is quite possible for the child to have fallen into. So that actually gave a clearer picture as to how possible anyone could have been in the boy's situation. So it wasn't just a single fence with a tiny piece of hole for lizards. The kid himself, Abduragbemi, was not met when the Channels Television network got there, but residents recalled the story and revealed that the boy, Bemi, was a mentally challenged child who lived with his grandmother and was being taken care of by a prophetess who said on the day that the boy disappeared, she had only just released him to his grandmother and that they were on their way to another center for deliverance, where the boy said he didn't want to go, and in the bid to escape, he ran away and found himself in the compound where he had the idea to hide between the walls. It was in the process of hiding that he eventually got stuck between the walls, only to be rescued 3 days later by residents of the neighborhood. And that was all the network could get from the story. They said when they got to Bemi's grandmother's house, she wasn't around, and neither was he. But the neighbors confirmed the story and said Bemi later reunited with his grandmother. However, since the incident happened, they had not seen him or heard from him again. But I'm sure the story might have changed now, seeing that this happened back in 2016. So most likely wherever Bemi is or wherever his grandmother is, I'm sure the neighbors might have seen or heard from him eventually. But at the time the network went there, the neighbors said they hadn't heard from him and they hadn't seen him since the incident happened. Up till this day, not much is known about Bemi, but many people who remember the story would hope that he is fine wherever he is. And this, my friend, is the story of the boy in the wall. So thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like and leave a comment to share your thoughts on the whole situation. And also, if you haven't subscribed yet, please don't forget to click the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so that you will get notified whenever there is a new video. Thank you for watching.